I am excited and delighted that you were able to join us this day, which is the second day of spring. Today, we are delighted to have with us Rebecca Hellman. She is the founder of Present Life, Beautiful Life. Rebecca brings a unique blend of a corporate experience combined with meditation and mindfulness training. As such, she can empathize deeply with the stresses of today's workplace and has an approachable and supportive way to begin bringing mindfulness into a busy life. She is an
Oh,
award-winning businesswoman and has spent more than 25 years in marketing leadership positions, which includes roles such as a marketing vice president at a global Fortune 15 company, and most recently as chief marketing officer at a rapidly growing rocket ship of a startup. In 2020, Rebecca left the world of marketing leadership to follow the nudge in her spirit to explore more deeply the practice of mindfulness and meditation. She enrolled at the Mindfulness Training Institute in Berkeley, California, to begin a 12-month training program to become a certified teacher in mindfulness. Since that time, Rebecca has wholeheartedly embraced the fulfillment that comes from bringing this practice to others who are looking for areas of stillness, quiet, and insight in the mindset of a very busy world. She founded Present Life, Beautiful Life to fulfill her vision of bringing the gift of mindfulness and presence to those who need and want it most. Rebecca thrives in creating communities of shared growth and learning. She received her undergraduate degree from the University of Notre Dame and her MBA from the Fisher College at The Ohio State University. Rebecca lives in Columbus, Ohio, and welcomes the quiet as well as relishes the chaos that comes from a busy, joy-filled life with 4 children. Additional information regarding Rebecca, her experience, philosophy are available, and available services can be found at her website, RebeccaHellman.com, RebeccaHellmann.com, as well as on LinkedIn. This morning, we're delighted that Rebecca consented to join us to help us all become a little bit more mindful in this very turbulent and chaotic society. Rebecca, we're in your hands. Oh, before you come, if you have questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. And there are some questions that we will address while we're proceeding, and then there are other questions that we will address as she goes. Rebecca.
wow. Thank you, Dr. Bowen. And thank you, each of you, for being here. I really appreciate the opportunity to join you. It's very uncomfortable to sit and listen to someone read your bio, even though that's a little bit about where I might start, because it's my story. And I feel honored that I get an opportunity to share with you my story. And my hope in joining you today is that I hope to reflect the human condition that I think is present in all of us. It may have different shades, it may have different circumstances, but I think many of us share these same elements of hustling, this perspective that our value is measured in what we do, not who we are, this relentless pursuit of perfection, perhaps even a sense of unworthiness, this quintessential question of, is this all there is? Is this the life I'm meant to be living? And that may be big or small in your life. But my hope today is that we all feel a little less alone in that journey, and we feel more connected in what I believe is a very shared story. So either way, I hope my story, the time I have with you today, is one that might give you a little bit of hope, inspiration, and a few practical tools to introduce pause, authenticity, and more intentionality into your own life, should that be what you're looking for. So before I begin, I'm curious, and I'd love if you all would share in the chat, what does living in an intentional life mean to you? Anybody just This is what we call popcorn style. Just any thoughts of your own. Thank you. Living with purpose, being in the moment. What does living an intentional life mean to you? One day at a time, being present, creating positive change. Oh yeah, feeling like what you do every day aligns with your belief and goals, being true to myself, being aware of your actions. Yeah. So it's just this, sense of being here, being aligned. And I might follow that up with what stands in your way? Right? This is hard to live a intentional life all the time. So now we started with kind of what's the pursuit? What stands in your way? There's no right or wrong. This is merely just getting each of your voices in the room. Yeah, the economics, the realities, stress, responsibility, what society is asking of us, other people's expectations, me. Oh, yes, I know that, right? I changed my life, and yet all of my same problems followed me. I think I'm the only constant in that all. Fear of the unknown, bad habits, fear of how your actions will be viewed. Yeah, thank you all. Perhaps a lack of discipline. Yeah, just this. I think this pull, it's hard. It's hard to stop and do something different, even though we know the rewards are there. And I can only speak of my own experience, and I'll do that today really with the humblest of intentions. And so my hope today is that I'll speak for, 30, 35 minutes. And then I'd love to leave some time at the end to just hear what resonated with you, answer any questions you have, and just open it up for a bit more of a dialogue. Let me pull up my screen. Can I get a thumbs up if are we okay seeing that? Lindsay, all right, thank you. So I entitled this The Power of Pause. And I think that is, for me, what allows me to stop many of these kind of headwinds, society, me, what will people think, fear. This power of pause allows me to sit a little bit more often in the space of authenticity, of intentionality. So today I'll share with you kind of 3 sections. The first, what it was like then and what it's like now. Secondly, looking back, what do I think helped propel me from the life that was to the life that is? And then lastly, how does this practice of meditation train our heart and mind in such a way that supports this journey of waking up? So I'll begin with, Dr. Bowen did such a nice job of introducing me. I wanted to highlight just a couple of parts of my bio that I think are relevant to the story I would like to share with you today. So as Dr. Bowen said, I spent the vast majority of my career in marketing leadership roles. Most recently, I was the chief marketing officer at a healthcare technology company here in Columbus. I'm the mother of 4, and it's worth noting that 3 of those children are teenagers. I have 14-year-old twin girls and a 13-year-old son and a 10-year-old son. It's a big part of my story as well. And the part that didn't come out in the bio was I am experienced in juggling plates, overcommitting, obsessing, ruminating, striving, people-pleasing, and lots of other learned but not exceptionally helpful behaviors. In 2020, I walked away from my life in corporate, which was the only thing I knew. And at that point, I just said, I'm going to explore being, not doing. And then ultimately, as Dr. Bowen said, I entered teacher training for mindfulness, meditation, and self-compassion. And now I teach this practice to beginners. So now that we're in the middle of March Madness, I would kind of call these my stats. But I think what's a little more interesting is the color commentary of this. And so I'll start with, this is how it appeared on the outside. The picture on the left is my team at the time. I was a vice president leading a really high-performing team. It was one of the best parts of my job. We were forming, storming, and norming, and we were really doing great things. Around that same time, I was recognized by the Ohio Diversity Council for being one of the top businesswomen in Ohio. And for those of you that are familiar with either personality or leadership competency or communication competencies, this is how I was showing up. So the picture on the left is DISC. And so that's a little bit of an illustration of a group I was in. I was in a group of high-performing vice presidents at a very large company. All those dots were where each person showed up on DISC. And that yellow star is where I was, way high on the D. D, if you're not familiar with it, is called dominance. This style is considered bold, skeptical, placing a high priority on winning. Very dynamic, self-assured, assertive. This is also an illustration of my strengths finders, the strengths that I had: achiever, competition, activator, focus, command. I was a get stuff done kind of person. And many would look and see on the outside that it appeared I had it all together. And yet this is how it felt on the inside. My mind was always churning, ruminating, analyzing, what-ifing, catastrophizing. If I had to picture an image of how the inside of my body felt, it would be this picture of a clenched fist. I was so tightly wound, trying to control, manipulate my circumstances. I was trying so hard to get everything orderly so I could be happy, chasing everything outside of me in pursuit of validation. So I spent a lot of time in my head, often disconnected from where I physically was. So many of the comments you made at the beginning were as being present, and I was the antithesis of present. I can remember explicitly times where I would come home from work and one of my little children be in front of me and I'd see their mouth moving. And I was thinking about an email, thinking about a project, thinking of how I would go back and, control some other aspect of my life that felt out of control. And so at that time period, this is a bit of a comparison about how it looked at the outside to how it felt on the inside. And this is what I would say it feels like today. Hand open, receptive, heart open, joy-filled, often inspired by the wonder around me. And this impacts every part of my life: how I parent, how I lead, how I love, how I move through life. Now, does this mean it's all rainbows and unicorns? It does not. I love this quote by Pema Chodron from When Things Fall Apart. Things falling apart is a kind of testing and also a kind of healing. We think that the point is to pass the test or to overcome the problem, but the truth is that things don't really get solved. They come together and they fall apart. Then they come together again and fall apart again. It's just like that. The healing comes from letting there be room for all of this to happen: room for grief, for relief, for misery, for joy. So the circumstances of my life are still challenging. They are, perhaps even more challenging than when I was employed by somebody else. I'm a solo entrepreneur trying to support a family of 5. I mentioned earlier, I'm living with 3 teenagers who take every bit of my wisdom, presence, kindness, perspective, many times more than I have to give. I'm co-parenting, which means half the time my kids aren't even with me, which is exceptionally hard as a mom. Navigating very different opinions on how children should be raised. I'm facing all the physical challenges that happen as life gets older. And I also want to nod to the pressures I don't have now or don't have yet. I don't have aging parents. I don't have a chronic health condition. I've never been judged because of the color of my skin or my sexual orientation. And so I raise this all because the reality is we're all living, I believe, in our own set of challenges. And for some, this moment is more challenging. For others, what I found in my experience thus far is I'm beginning to find peace in the midst of the challenge. And it's within that spirit that I share this quote from Pema and this context. The challenges keep coming, the fear, the doubt, the frustration, the worry. I would say the difference is how I feel a bit in the midst of them. Every moment, no, but more moments than not. I live more moments than not in the feeling of openness than tightness. You know, in my senses, that comes because I'm living a life that's now more intentional, more present, more authentic, more compassionate. Which leads me, I think, to this big question. How does one begin the journey of living a more intentional life? And this is actually where I get most uncomfortable. This how does one transform their life to one that's more or that's more spacious, less reactive? I get uncomfortable because I don't know that I did it right. I still don't know that I'm doing it right. And more than anything, I know now I have no idea what anybody else should do. I barely know what I should do. So I certainly don't know what's best for others. So I share this information not from a place of credentials, of superiority or great wisdom, but instead from a place of hindsight. I heard some time ago that perhaps my growth story will be somebody else's hope. So it's within this light that I share this, in the hope that something might land, that something might resonate. Those few years, when I showed you just a smattering of photos about what it looked on the outside, that was a long, dark journey for me. I was fighting inner demons. I was facing the collapse of a 20-year marriage, a miscarriage, years of living with a loved one's alcoholism. It was dark. And I had no idea what I was doing. And yet I found my way to where I am today. And I now have this benefit of hindsight, this ability to look behind me a bit and ask, well, what was it? What got me through that? And while the path wasn't clear then, by any means, there were some pearls of learning. And so I would offer, here's what I've extrapolated from my own journey. And so I would offer, take what you like and leave the rest. So I summarized this into 4 tenets that propelled me and continue to propel me forward when I'm not sure what to do. The first, acknowledge a change is needed. The second, open to the idea that something different is possible. The third, put one foot in front of the other. And the fourth, learn to sit in the unknown. So I'll share a little bit of my perspective on each of these. The first, acknowledge a change is needed. I had initially termed this hit rock bottom. And somebody suggested, I'm not sure if that's actually what you should call it. And I actually think there's real truth to that. I also think there's some truth to the way I wrote it the first time. A crash and burn, while that was my experience, isn't necessary. A total 180 of a job change isn't necessary, but there is some element in my experience of pain being necessary to make any change. There's a Zen quote that says, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. Tony Robbins says, change happens when the pain of staying the same is greater than the pain of change. Yeah, so hit some sort of rock bottom, I guess. What I learned is that it's only through pain do I do the hard work of changing. It's much easier to ask other people to change. The job needs to change, the boss needs to change, the kids need to change, my bank account needs to change. But it's only when I truly face the inevitable reality that most of the times those things don't change did I become motivated to do the hard work. And so I sat in a spot of this sucks for a really long time. And so, no, that's okay. We each get here right on time. But for maybe those of you that might be a little bit more open than I was, some prompting questions that might indicate a change is in order. Some pings, I like to call them. Maybe a sense that you aren't living in accordance with your values. This came up in the beginning, right? The sense of I'm living in accordance with my values. And by values, I don't mean morals. I mean this idea of personal needs that are deeply important to us. What's fundamental to my sense of well-being? Connection with others, adventure, a sense of making a change, creativity. When these values aren't being addressed in a real way for a real time, it can really introduce some suffering in our life and maybe an interest in changing. Perhaps a sense of angst about how life is unfolding. The general, I would call this dissatisfactoriness. We all had dreams when we were little, and while it would be naive to think that we can live out our dreams every moment of the day, a general sense that there's more, I'm being called to do more, is this all there is? That could be a ping. Beginning to notice the preciousness of time, our own aging, our parents' aging, the time we have with our kids before they leave for college, whatever it is, the sense of these sands of time slipping through our fingers and we can't hold on to them. Perhaps a sense that a rebalancing would help. It is super, super hard balancing work and life. As a mother of 4 with a big job, I sure know that. One of my perspectives was, I believe it's over the long term we need to look for balance, right? There's times we need to lean in more towards work, and there's times we need to lean in more towards home. But when we start to notice that we're perpetually leaning away from what matters, and we're telling ourselves, I'll catch up to it in the future. In the future, I'll have a better balance. That might be a ping. This general sense that life is passing us by and we're holding on. And lastly, I might suggest the implication of our health. It's unfortunate for many of us that health is something we take for granted until we don't have it. The impact of my body of the tightness, the rumination, showed up in ways I didn't fully appreciate until I gave myself a break. So I offer each of these up, not as a reason for you to go through your life and scan it. If they exist, you'll know. But just to suggest that maybe the ping you're feeling might be an acknowledgement that a change is in order, which then leads me to tenet number 2. Open to the idea that something different is possible. For many of us, I think we can start to think this is all there is. We resign ourselves to a life of okayness because we don't believe anything different is possible. That was my experience. So if tenet 1 is the stick, this might be the carrot. The image that came to me was, if you lived in gray skies all the time, if we had never seen the sun, we couldn't even imagine the warmth. So if that's the case, what do? I might offer we can look for cracks of warmth. When there are moments of joy, of authenticity, of creativity, of inspiration, when your heart sings, recognize it, name it, even if it's fleeting. Ah, this makes me happy. Ah, this is joy. Find others that inspire you and do more of that. The intention here is to taste moments of difference that then open us up to a motivation of cracking that a little bit open further. For me, my doorway was yoga. I was a runner. I was fast-paced in everything I did. And then I tried yoga and we practiced stillness. And I tapped into, the first time in my life, a sense of quiet that up until that point I never knew existed. But when I tapped into it, I said, oh, I want more of that. And so that was my first taste of something different, and I just kept going. I wasn't sure what it was meant or what I was to do with it, which brings me then to tenet number 3. Just keep putting one foot in front of the other. I think at this stage, action's more important than accuracy. For most of my life, I worked off a plan. Here I am in the depths of despair, and I had no idea what to do. So what did I do? I just kept putting one foot in front of the other. I took care of this moment. I stopped trying to solve it all, figure it all out, and just asked myself, what's the next right thing I can do? And if you're like me, I would read all the experts. I needed to eat better, sleep better, exercise more, meditate, take cold showers, see a therapist. Oh my goodness, it was too much. Which one should I do first? Should I do all of them? What's the most important thing to do? And when I would see those lists, I just wanted to take a nap. It was too much. So I don't know how many of you share any of my perfectionist tendencies, but I was either going to do it all or was I going to do anything? And I think that paralyzed me. And so I think to do one small thing, just to make a small change in how one walks through life, can be really impactful. Just do one thing. And don't worry if it's the right thing. Just do one thing. When your mind tells you you should be doing another thing or more things, just do one thing. I know at that time in my life, I didn't even know what one thing was. And so I thought I would share some one things. These are simple, 30 seconds to 3 minutes a day. Sit and listen to sounds every day. Enjoy a creative pursuit. Take a meditation class. Start journaling for 5 minutes. I didn't even know I had heard journaling was super helpful, but I didn't even know what to do. So they have templates for that. I found that to be super helpful. Go for a walk without your phone or music. Try yoga or another mind-body practice. Give yourself 15 minutes a day on your calendar and just give it to yourself. Begin a daily gratitude practice. The one I do is 10 fingers. As I wake up in the morning or fall asleep at night, when my mind tends to race, I just find 10 things I'm grateful for. 10 fingers, 10 things to be grateful for. A supportive community. Dr. Bowen talked about this in the beginning, but I think that's really where my love is how do we break down the sense that we're alone in this journey, instead support each other. Before you roll over and check your phone, give yourself a few unplugged minutes to start your day. And so this is not intended to be exhaustive, nor is it intended to be prescriptive, but instead just a bit of brainstorm. And then my last tenet is learn to sit in the unknown. This idea of I'll have in the future what I need in the future. Right now, I have everything I need. That I can trust myself to respond as the situation comes up. This can be an incredibly uncomfortable space. But what I've also found is it can be quite freeing. So much of our life can be spent trying to control what happens next. When we start to learn to sit in this place of, I have no idea where this is going to take me, or I have no idea how this is going to work out, I might suggest that that's the first time our hands can unclench. Because we're less focused on the outcome than we are on just doing the right thing. And all this work has led us to a place where, if nothing else, we learn to trust ourselves. So this last step, this tenet 4, is much more of an outcome than an action, but it's really pivotal. It's been really pivotal to me in this journey. And so I didn't want to fail to mention it. It's this sense of deeper knowing when am I acting out of discomfort because I don't like this feeling? And when am I failing to act because of discomfort? So this just sense of sitting in a place of uncertainty and being okay with it. I'll just take a pause here and just ask you, if I summarize these 4 tenets, listen to the pings, look for cracks of warmth, do one small thing, and notice when urgency is a push to control. Did anything resonate with you? Is there anything that touched your heart or mind in a way that you want to remember? Maybe just jot it down. A little note to yourself, an encouragement to yourself. And now, these last few minutes, I would like to just share a little bit of a point of view about how, in my experience, this practice of mindfulness meditation trains our hearts and our minds in a way that supports this journey of waking up. What's interesting is the 4 tenets that I just went through led me actually to the practice of meditation. And what I'm learning now is this practice of meditation actually, I believe, also supported this journey. So how can meditation open up this inner knowing that helps me guide my life? The first step is we begin to know ourselves. Everything that happens in this journey of authenticity, of intentionality, we need to know who we are. Oh, sit with only you and your thoughts and your feelings in a meditation? Yeah, you really start to learn yourself. I know my triggers. I know my tendencies. I know the conditions that support me in being my best self and those that call me away from that place. I now know what makes my heart sing. This superpower of knowing yourself is not exclusively through meditation, I'm sure, but I do believe it requires 2 things: a sense of stillness and a sense of curiosity. And meditation's been that practice for me. So how does this knowing happen? Often we distract ourselves from our inner world by our outer world. When we sit in meditation, there is no distraction. Every thought we see, every emotion we feel, every sensation is known. I often begin a sit by asking, what am I thinking? What feelings am I carrying? Wow, never cease to be surprised by what comes up. I remember in that particularly dark time in my life, I was rushing around to make some really big decisions. And at one point, my sister looked at me and said, well, what do you want? It literally took my breath away. I had never stopped to ask myself that question. And I definitely didn't know the answer. But this practice of just sitting and knowing myself, it becomes the foundation for everything else I do. What fuels me? What tires me? What are my buttons? What are my growth edges? And that level of knowing is a direct result of being quiet and being still. Which brings me to my next step of how I believe this practice helps. We practice being okay with discomfort. So much of our life, we're pushing away from the uncomfortable and we're trying relentlessly to find the comfort. Pushing away from stress, pushing away from fear, looking for peace, looking for calm. And that's fine if that's how life unfolds. But expectations, aging, sickness, disappointment, they're all a part of life. And if we can only be okay when our circumstances are okay, think it's really a recipe for failure. So how does meditation help us here? We learn to sit with discomfort. We learn not to scratch when an itch appears. We learn that we have a capacity to let it be there, pass on its own. And that's a wonderfully empowering feeling. We learn not to wiggle, even when our mind habits tell us so. We start to notice reactivity and let it pass through rather than be engulfed in it. In this practice, it's not an intellectual or theoretical exercise. We physically learn, oh, discomfort's okay. Oh, discomfort passes. I can do this. It's not an intellectual exercise. It's one we actually experience for ourselves. Which brings me to the third muscle that's built, and that's a resource of self-kindness. This one's pretty powerful. Self-compassion, which is really just a fancy term for being a friend to ourselves versus a saboteur to ourselves, is really powerful. There's such a growing body of research out there that talks that those with greater levels of self-compassion are less afraid of failure. They're okay taking risks. They have high personal standards. They just don't beat themselves up when they fail. So they're actually less afraid of failure. People with higher levels of self-compassion are more resilient. Self-compassion can be a really reliable source of inner strength. Those people with higher levels of self-compassion are more motivated. But the motivation doesn't come from a place of fear. I'm not enough if I don't do this. It comes from a place of love, of care, a sense of I want the best for myself. It's the way you'd encourage a child, not by fear, but believing in themselves. Those who practice and have higher levels of self-compassion take better care of themselves. They eat healthier, exercise more, go see the doctor. Why? Because they believe they're worth it. So what's interesting is this idea of self-kindness for me also had to be taught. I couldn't read about it. I couldn't just tell myself, be kind to myself. This was really the antithesis of how I had grown up and conditioned myself to relate to myself. And so it wasn't, for me, just an idea. I had to do it through behavior change. I literally took an introductory course in self-compassion where for 8 weeks I showed up and the teacher reminded me. My classmates reminded ourselves, and I did daily practices to begin to turn that into a muscle memory. I then did a year-long class because I was a really slow learner. Because I had years of the opposite of relating to myself, and I really needed more practice and more reminders. And now I teach it. And this act of kindness to myself has been one of the most profound changes in how I've moved through life. And I am still a work in progress. But this new learned behavior, learning how to support myself, I think has been one of the most critical in making a change of a life more of intentionality and kindness. And lastly, through meditation, I learned which of my habits are skillful and which aren't. And that's just kind of a culmination of the previous 3 steps. What are my habits? How do I know when I'm procrastinating versus I'm out of gas? How do I know when it's fear of failure versus a real sense I'm over my skis? When am I people pleasing and when am I doing something in alignment with my heart? So as I wrap this up, I want to be very clear. Does intentionality mean a career change? That's what I did. And I would absolutely say no. But I do think it's about uncovering those things that are inspiring to you. Maybe an ability to just notice the beauty that's around every day. A choice to be fully present for those that we love. A way to include ourselves in our circle of care. A way for us to be authentically responsive versus reactive to those we mentor, to those we lead, to those we manage, and ultimately just being true to ourselves. As I wrap this up, I wasn't sure how do you put a bow tie on this. And then I came across a poem by Donna Ashworth called Know Yourself, and this decision was made for me. So I'd like to read it to you. Know yourself, they say, and don't be led astray. But how can I know who I am when I'm different every day? Some days I'm the smart one with the answers people need, and some days I'm the strong one standing up to take the lead. On other days, I'm sure that if the wind blew me too hard, I would shatter like a glass into a million tiny shards. And on those days, I cower and I hide out from the world, waiting on my inner child to blossom and unfurl. And each day I'm surprised by the newness that I see, the things I'm finding out, the complexity of me. So how to know yourself when you're all things rolled in one? You simply must decide to love whatever you've become. That, my friends, I believe is our growth story. So I don't know what's best for you, but I really believe that you do. And the opportunity is just to sit and uncover it. So thank you for listening. Thank you for your presence. And I would now love to engage in any dialogue on what resonated, what didn't, or perhaps if you have any questions for me.
Thank you, Rebecca, for a thought-provoking presentation. We do have some questions in the chat, and I do encourage those that if you would like to speak directly, you can as well. So we go to the first question. Did COVID help make you pause? Did it help you to pause?
Such a good question. Actually, when I have an opportunity to tell the story, COVID's often a big part of my story. That ping I had shared around the preciousness of life, around life passing by. I worked in a healthcare organization when COVID was happening. And so I was doing competitive intelligence briefings about how hospitals were responding because they were our target customer. And the juxtaposition of us making business decisions while hospitals are talking about rationing resources and how to share ventilators, really touched me in a way that called into question for my own self. Am I doing the most important work I can do? I also I had 4 kids homeschooling at the time, and I'm on Zoom calls. And I can explicitly remember sitting at the dining room table and asking myself, is this what life is supposed to be about? Yeah, so it very much did. Thanks for the question. And I think it has impacted many of us.
I would agree with that, Rebecca. It helped to reprioritize the things that needed to be first for me. Because as you described, we had many things taking place. And I would agree that COVID did create a pause, and it has a purposeful pause for me personally. So thank you for bringing that out. There was a question about one of the tenants. The individual didn't get everything that you said regarding the tenant number 4, to trust myself to. That's the part they didn't. And when life shows up, can you kind of revisit that a little bit?
Yeah, so I think this idea of tenant 4 for me is around starting to be comfortable when things are uncomfortable. Starting to be comfortable when things are uncomfortable. So for me, uncertainty had used to be very uncomfortable. I would map out my day to a T because then at least I felt I had some control. And so if you, again, in my experience now, where I believe life unfolds in a more intentional way is when I don't know how it's going to, but I trust in myself that I'll be able to meet whatever life gives me. And so, I think tenant number 4 is really just about opening up to the discomfort of uncertainty and finding in yourself a sense of confidence and trust in yourself that you will have what life gives you in any moment, even if you don't know how the next moment's going to unfold. I hope that's helpful.
Yes, I hope that's helpful to the person who asked the question as well. Here's another question. How have those around you reacted to the new and improved you?
Mm. Oh, goodness gracious, such a great question. I think this energy of being very intentional about where I spend my time and my heart and my talents has
Mhm,
done a bit of pruning in my life. I
mm,
do. I'm more intentional about who I spend time with.
mhm,
So I think those that still have a seat at the table with me
mhm,
appreciate the little bit more authentic, vulnerable, present Rebecca.
mhm,
They
mhm,
do. Um, as a result of, I think, more intentionality, boundaries are a really big part of my life right now.
mhm,
I stand up for myself in a way that I didn't before because I was so tight and so worried what people would think. I didn't. And so not always are boundaries received in a really, are not always received well. I had somebody really tell me you can't set a boundary and also worry about somebody else's feelings though. And so
mm,
that's part of my growth. But I would say it has strengthened those relationships that really matter to me. And as a parent, I this ability to just sit with my kids as they're struggling and not try to fix,
mhm.
not try to tell them what they need to do. Again, still a real big growth edge for me, but that's allowed my parenting to really, I think, be just a more present parent, which has really helped, I believe, offered a lot to my kids.
Great. Thank you very much. Nicole, you have your hand up. We'll acknowledge you at this time. Okay. Maybe you could unmute your mic. There you go.
Thank you. It said I wasn't allowed at first.
Mhm. Okay.
Rebecca, I just wanted to hear more about your experience in the year-long mindfulness training that you had.
Mm.
I related a lot to what you say, so I want to say thank you to this. As someone who's gone on a very similar journey, I think I resonate with a lot of what you said, and I'd love to hear your insight on what you learned. And if there's anything you haven't mentioned in this presentation, maybe something that you could take back from it. Meditation was personally something that I did not find helpful on my journey, or if I found it helpful, it was very much in the beginning and I had to progress on my own way. But I'd love to hear your thoughts about it.
Yeah, thanks, Nicole. So it was interesting when I decided to do teacher training, I did it again without a clear end of what I would do with that when that year ended. I knew I was going to take a year off from my traditional career route and fill my gas tank. But as a very structured professional learner, I said, well, what am I going to do with my year? And so I said, well, I'll do this program because it gave me a little bit of structure, also deepened a skill set that I was interested in growing, and gave a little bit of, more than anything, just gave structure to what I had told myself would be a year of being, not doing. And so I remember the first time I sat down in the class, I also felt like I had landed in my home. The wisdom of working with my mind in a way that I never had felt really interesting and empowering to me. I felt like every thought I had, I acted upon. Every emotion I thought I had, I believed. I was such a servant to my mind, and my mind was really tight, controlling, and had a lot of bad habits. And so this sense that we can redefine the relationship with our mind to be one that's more skillful and to also cultivate really great heart habits of gratitude, of compassion, of joy, of balance, just spoke to me in a way that nothing I had encountered earlier in my life really had. I knew I had these moments of stillness, and I knew I had these moments of kind of introspection and curiosity. And for me, the discipline and the practice of this, 2000-year-old practice how to work with the mind and a heart in a way that opened up freedom and spaciousness really resonated with me. So I did that for a year, again, with an intention that at the end of this, I'll see what I'm called to do. Perhaps I'll go back and be a marketing executive again, and I'll just do so with a deeper set of tools in my toolkit, my gas tank filled. And at the end, I really was so touched by this training that I wanted to bring it to others. And so that's kind of been my experience, Nicole. I hope that's helpful.
You know, Rebecca, I love, even when we talked before this session, you talked about making certain your gas tank is filled. And that is something that is important, and being intentional about that and doing the work that it takes to keep your tank filled is something that I know I've taken away, as well as other things that you've shared today. Some have shared in the chat that your voice and your tone and your pace was helpful for others to in the space to relax, and that they found it very helpful and wanted to thank you, because this individual is contemplating retirement and what it might look like. And so your comments have reinforced her thoughts and confidence in what she's thinking, feeling, and hoping about moving forward. So someone asked a question: what book is the I Know poem from?
That is, she actually has not yet published a book. The author is called Donna Ashworth.
Mhm.
And she writes a series of poems that she releases predominantly through social media, although she also has a website, Donna Ashworth, a lot around self-compassion and kindness.
Great, great. I'm going to read a couple points here. Thank you, Rebecca. I feel like these are all the things we need to reflect on over and over and over again until we can learn to put these into practice for ourselves. And Emily asked a question: is there a difference between discomfort that we need to sit with and explore versus discomfort that is a ping that indicates we need to change? That's a good question.
Oh, it's a great question, Emily.
And also check the chat for the Donna Ashworth link. Thank you, Jenny.
Okay, so Emily's asking, is there a difference between discomfort that we need to sit with and kind of this ping that happens
That
that's
says
really
we need
hard.
to move.
Yeah, that says we need to move forward. I think for me, what I've learned is reactivity versus wise response. So when I talk about sitting in discomfort, I'll go back to this, I need to get out of this now and I need to go do something to release this discomfort I have, feels very different than I'm solid, I'm recognizing something, I've sat with it, and I'm going to take wise action. So for me, they're very, very different energies that I didn't know at the beginning, right? But now this kind of angsty, I gotta do something right now, this urgency often to me is a sign that reactivity is coming up. Like if I gotta go do something now, it's likely more a groove in my mind talking than this general sense of wise action that always has action tied to it, but in a much more open, spacious, intentional way.
Great, great. Well, that was a very good point to kind of wrap up this session on. I want to thank you, Rebecca, and everyone who has attended today. I want to remind you that next week on the 28th, we'll have our last of our pool series. We'll have Pamela Green talking about developing a brand strategy for yourselves. Thank you again for your support of the pool series, and don't hesitate to go to franklin.edu/Franklin University Leadership Center, and you'll be able to see this recording in a couple of weeks as well as others. Thank you. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and remember to be intentional.